Hello and welcome to another instalment of our occasional podcast called I Wish I Hadn't. I'm Dave Hill.
And I'm John Wyatt. As you can tell from our names, David and Jonathan, we were born in the 1950s, so we've had many years to accumulate embarrassing moments which we now feel happy to share.
The dictionary defines regret as a sorrowful remembrance, a sense of loss. But we're not in the business of sorrow and loss here. We're dealing with those things in life that we might wish had been otherwise, but which we're now prepared to own up to.
Today we grit our teeth as we recall old injuries. This is going to hurt.
Painful.
Ouchie, Dave, right? As we said, we've already discussed in the past some sports injuries, but
Yes.
But there's a whole world of pain and discomfort in our past, isn't there?
Yes.
Can I ask you, what is the most pain you've ever been in?
The most pain, I think probably the most pain I've been in a if you like, one that really knocked me off my feet was actually when I was 11, and one Friday morning, I didn't realize at the time, but I actually had acute appendicitis, and it was so intense that I was like delirious with it, really, and being vomiting and everything, and was rushed to Dorchester Hospital, the old Dorchester, where my literally within probably about 8 hours or something, I'd been taken into surgery and my appendix removed. But I remember just the excruciating pain and the vomiting most of all. The bit that always makes me think of it though is that it was a double-edged sword, because once I'd had the operation and recovered, and of course in those days you weren't in and out within a couple of days. I was in for a week.
Yeah.
And the recovery was in there, and that was quite pleasant, really, because they kept sort of feeding me really nice food, that, ice cream and stuff like this every day, and it was like, this is amazing. The big downfall was that the Sunday night that I was in there, the Beatles were due to appear on Sunday night at the London Palladium, and the children in the children's ward that I was in were gathered round the television, because we all knew the Beatles were going to be on. Because I was I probably was 10 or 11, so it would have been 64-ish, something like that.
Yeah.
And television all gathered round it. And as the program started, the matron came into the room, said, "Right, everybody, it's bedtime now. Television's going off," switched it off, and we were all sent back to our beds. I was absolutely devastated. And it's one of those things I think, oh God, I wish I'd seen it. Now, for many, many years, I didn't see it. And then, of course, the glory of YouTube is that I have actually seen it now. I've seen the performance because it's there for everyone to see online. And it was a huge weight taken off my shoulders, this thing I'd missed that I was desperate to see. But I'll never forget that matron. "Right, everybody, time for bed." What?
Yeah. I can imagine that. I probably saw it myself because I was probably watching at home. But I think for myself, the worst pain I've ever been in was when I put my back out for the first time, which was when I went to pick up a waste paper basket. Of all the stupid things, I mean, I've heard of people putting their back out cleaning their teeth.
Yes.
But I went to pick up a waste paper basket, and I didn't get off the floor again for another 3 days. It was so painful.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably putting your back out cleaning your teeth, I think probably that it's best if the toothbrush goes into the mouth rather than the other way.
True. That would make me jump, wouldn't it? Yeah. I actually had a visit from the GP, as the days when doctors used to call, and she came round and gave me morphine, which was blissful after the pain, because I literally couldn't move. But the next morning she came back again to check on me. Just shows, this is the wonderful old NHS back in the 80s, I suppose, 90s. And I said, "Can I have another of those nice injections, please?" And she said, "No, sorry." That was a one. Um, that was. But I've got a story, Dave,
Mm.
that you will remember, and of pain, and it's
That's
when you
that's a very bold statement to make. I will remember. Don't forget how old we are, John, but I'll try.
you will remember this one because you and I and my dad went to the Melplash show.
Oh yes,
You remember this?
I
And
do.
we drank a lot. And
We did.
and you went to see a gypsy fortune teller. Um, there's no pain related to that, but I can remember. And
She
my
she
dad
told
got into
sorry
her husband.
she told me I would be a farmer basically.
Did she?
Yes, because we were at the Melplash show, and I think that was a stock answer to anybody she didn't know better.
There's still time, Dave. It's not too late. Just buy a few sheep. Anyway, we were leaving the show. A lot of pints to the worst, so we decided to go to the fun fair at West Bay. And you,
Remember?
me, and Dad, and we went by the horse jumps in the ring,
Hmm.
and my dad said, "Can you two jump over the horse fence?" So you took a run at it. You sailed over it. Remember this at all? Is
I, it's a very hazy memory. I don't. We drank a lot of beer that day. That was the problem.
it, So I followed suit. I sailed over, but on the other side was a fence pole lying on the ground. I landed on it with my ankle and it
Hmm.
rolled and I turned my ankle over.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so obviously anesthetized by all the alcohol, I just ignored it. And we went down, we went on the Dodgems at West Bay, I can remember at the fair.
Mm.
In the middle of that night, I woke up in a lot of pain. And I was going back to London the next day, caught the train back, had to hobbled up to A&E, and they said I'd chipped a bone in my ankle.
Wow.
So I mean, it was quite painful. I mean,
Mm.
we didn't wrap it in plaster or anything, but I remember I had a crutch, I think, or another crutch, should I say, a second crutch. And I went to a wedding the next day, couldn't dance or anything like that. I had to just sort of sit with my ankle up. Um,
No
but
change there, John. No change
no,
there. If you couldn't dance, that's fair enough.
well, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I used to quite pride myself on my dance. But there we are. Yeah.
Yeah,
So does that bring it back to you?
it does. It does. I do remember it now. I mean, obviously, I was when you were talking about pain and discomfort there. I thought you were going to bring into that tale the poor man on the coconut chai stall who also
No,
suffered pain and discomfort from having balls thrown at him.
favorite story. Yes, we ought to just run that one quickly through. It's not pain and discomfort, but I think he was. There was a stall. I think they were the Loyal Order of the Moose or something like that. Um, and they had a kind of a coconut shy, except it was tins, and you threw a ball of sort of rolled up tights or socks or something at them.
That's right.
We had a go at this and knocked some cans off, and then he restacked the cans. And as he turned to restack them, my dad said, "Watch this." And he took one of the balls and threw it and hit the man smack on the back of his head on his bald spot. And we all ran out of the tent giggling like little boys.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I was just thinking. So we've done stomach upsets and we've done ankles and all that sort of thing. One of the painful ones I remember was do with cutting yourself. And
All
I
right.
was I'd got home from work and had decided that I didn't really want to prepare anything particularly. I knew there were some beef burgers frozen in the freezer, and so I this is probably about 80, about 1980ish, something like that, and so I took out this sort of roll of frozen beef burgers to get one off, and of course they, as always, they're really stuck together with the frozen together. So my great idea was that they're on the kitchen top. I'll take a nice sharp pointy knife and insert it into the roll of beef burgers, wiggle it around a bit, and one will free itself from the pile. Well,
Makes sense.
unfortunately, what didn't happen was one freed it, it freed itself from the pole, but it was sudden. And because it was sudden, the very sharp knife then managed to take the very top of my middle finger on my right hand, no, my
Mm.
left hand actually, the very top sort of was almost like only about a millimeter of it, but enough of it came off with quickly with this knife to bleed profusely.
Hmm.
Um, so I panicked a little bit, but got a handkerchief, wrapped it around it, and it was one of these things where I thought, this is not going to stop bleeding on its own at the moment, so I'm going to have this looked at. I wasn't driving at the time, as well, it was quite a long time before I drove. I certainly couldn't have afforded a taxi. I didn't want to go on the bus with this sort of blood-soaked handkerchief and sort of wrapped around it.
Hmm.
So I walked probably about 3, 4 miles, I think it was, to the hospital, sort of holding my hand, holding this thing around it, all the way to Selly Oak Hospital. It was
Mm.
where A&E existed at the time, and I had to say they were very good. And how did you do it, etc. And bandaged it up, and I think they put a stitch as well, if I remember, because it was quite deep. And the sort of the the bit at the end of the story that I sort of glossed over really at the time when I was having it done, so I'd forgotten about it, was that the end of my finger was still in the freezer because I sort of it had sort of as I put the roll of beef burgers back, it obviously was in amongst them.
All
And
right.
all I can say is that I couldn't find it on its own, and eventually all the beef burgers were eaten.
So
Read into that what you like.
were they all eaten by you, or were they eaten by somebody else?
My landlady and her boyfriend at the time also partook of beef burgers at various times. So who knows? Who knows who got the bonus?
A story of cannibalism, then,
It
really.
really is. It really is. Yeah.
Another thing I can think of, Dave, that relates to both you and me. Were you, like me, absolutely terrified of the BCG injection at school?
Absolutely. Because of what everyone told you about it, who was older than you'd had it, which was it was almost like the tradition was that you frightened the next year, didn't you?
Exactly. Yes, yes, I know. They
Yeah.
said how painful it was, and a needle that was, about as long as your arm, and then you went and had it, and it was absolutely fine. So
Yeah.
then you went terrified the next year, Dan.
Exactly. Yeah. A
So
sore arm was about it, wasn't it? Really?
yeah, 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 yeah. I think, I've been pretty lucky because I've broken my ankle, the same ankle that I chipped in the car accident. But generally speaking, I haven't actually broken any other bones, and
No.
my hospital admissions have been, sort of for fairly uninteresting things. I mean, having my ears put back, that was a good one when I was a child.
Yes. Yes. I
Um,
remember you telling me about that. Yes. Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
painful at all, as far as I can remember. I had an interesting one. It wasn't painful, but it was quite amusing because when I went for a vasectomy,
Hmm.
um, the 90s, after Joe, early 90s, no, late 80s actually, I had to shave,
Yeah.
so that I could get at the relevant bits. And it's not as if there was a sort of a dense growth of brambles and things there, but the nurse, the very sort of sweet young nurse, didn't offer to do it for me. So she gave me a razor and she said, "I'll come back in a few minutes."
Yeah.
So I sort of hacked away at it, and then she came back and she said, "I'm just going to check your shave." So she looked at it and she sort of put on a disapproving, slightly embarrassed face, and she said, "No, could you do it a bit more around there?" And she sort of waved her finger in a rough sort of circle. So I just went the whole hog, and I just looked like a turkey after that.
Yeah. Last turkey in the shop.
The last turkey in the shop. Yeah, yeah. Wait, I
Did,
mean,
yeah.
go
Go on.
no, go on.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, have you ever been in hospital for things other than your appendix?
No, well, apart from my deviated septum, on my wrist, I mean, I did have a cyst on a very small bone in my wrist, which I still have the scar from now, which had to be removed. And basically, I may have talked, I can't remember if I said this in an early one, but it was a sort of pressure it put on the little bone in my wrist was so that meant that I couldn't hold a beer glass without
Oh, right.
supporting it underneath, which was obviously a real problem. But
Cool.
also, in those days of chalk and blackboards, when I was teaching, I couldn't actually write on the blackboard because by gripping the piece of chalk, I'd start to write something, and then I'd drop the chalk. So, so worried about what it might be. Turned out it was this little cyst, which actually was just taken out. And I think I thought I may have told that one before, but can you
No,
remember me? No.
no, no.
Oh, in that case, just to finish it off, the when the surgeon looked at the X-rays to say what it was and what he was going to do, he said if you he said this is an injury that normally or a cyst that normally grows for people who dig roads and use road drills. He said,
Okay.
do you do that? And I said, not really, no.
No.
What my
I thought
pastimes?
you were going to say that they associate it with masturbation, but
Well, it was that was always commented on, So whenever I said I've got this problem with my wrist, that was always the first suggestion was that I was doing something too much. So,
yeah, you should have become ambidextrous, shouldn't you? Just use the
I
other.
should really, I should really, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
going back to blood spillage, um, another really unpleasant one of mine was that when I was at college, I'd actually been out for the night. And unusually, I hadn't had a lot to drink. I probably had about a pint, I think, because it's one of those nights where I just didn't feel like having a drink. Had a chat and everything, and I came back to the corridor down which my room was, and all the lights were out, and I turned quickly down round the corner, and and too quickly to actually take the corner, so that my eyebrow met a sort of a squared off pointed wall, and so I literally headbutted this thing, which
Yeah.
split my eyebrow, and immediately, again, blood started pouring it down my eye, and I couldn't see, and I was a bit panicky, but I knew there was a nurse somewhere near. There was always like an on-call nurse at college, and so I went to see her, and basically I'd split it, and she put a I stitched it and it sorted it. But she was really angry with me because it was late at night and I disturbed her sleep, all because, as she said, I'd obviously had far too much to drink and and had headbutted this wall. And all of my protestations went to
Mm.
no avail. She didn't believe me. And it was one of the few occasions I hadn't had too much to drink that I actually did it. So, yeah, blood everywhere again,
Yeah.
t-shirt ruined.
Yeah. And teeth. I mean,
Oh,
tooth.
teeth. Yeah. I mean,
And I've had some pretty severe tooth pain at times, and
yeah. I mean, I've not really had huge sort of toothaches and stuff like that, but I think the standard of dentistry that I got in Beminster was pretty good from what I understand of people looking at my teeth in later years who said, oh, this stuff's been there a long time and it's really good. So, hats
yeah.
off to our dentist in Beminster. But the one thing I did have, probably about 5, 6 years ago, um, the dentist I was seeing then said, "Look," he said, "you've got these fillings are a bit discoloured towards the front where you could, or not quite the front, but down the side." He said, I could put some, tooth-coloured filling in there. It's a lot more expensive, but it'll look really nice." And
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, yeah, all right, go on, we'll try that then." So he replaced these older fillings with the ones that looked really good, and I was in agony for 3 days. It never settled down at all. And in the
Mm.
end, having paid a lot of money for these, I went back and insisted he take them out and put ordinary ones back in, the cheaper ones, the amalgam ones, which he did. Never had a problem since.
It's
So that was
strange.
a salutary lesson that, don't just pay for something and think it'll be excellent because it looked good, because it
Yeah.
certainly wasn't.
Well, I'm way past the point of thinking of looking good. I mean, I just never smile at anybody. That's the answer, really.
Yeah,
Mm.
keep your lips closed all the time.
That's right. Mm.
If we travel down our bodies slightly, um,
How
we
do we
come
go?
we come to those areas of that you tend to have examined from time to time, don't we? And I always remember when I applied to go to college, and one of the things you had to have was a medical exam, and the 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 nurse who was going to give me a medical an examination, was a reasonably young, attractive lady,
Mm.
and of course she then insisted that as part of the examination, I had what we used to call the cough medical,
I bet it isn't
and
really on the list, Dave. I bet that she just told you that.
yeah. So, I remember standing there at 18 years of age, thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm 18. I'm alone in a room with a reasonably attractive nurse who is about to tell me to drop my trousers and pants."
Yes.
Which she then did, and I sort of looked anywhere and thought about ice cold water and anything I could to make sure there was nothing embarrassing,
Sure.
um, and having dropped them to sort of down um, to my feet, she said, "Oh, thank you very much. That's enough."
Mm.
And I took this as a sign to mean I could pull them back up again and get over the embarrassment, which I started to do. And she said, "No, I'm sorry. What I meant was that's far enough
Uh,
down. I'll now have to. I'll now have to give you the cough medical."
mm.
So not so much pain, but certainly discomfort in a sort of an embarrassing way, really. So I wish I hadn't had to go through that.
And I'm sure she was a professional, Dave. But I mean, you would have liked to be
She was.
equally professional and not presumably got a stiffy, but but there you
I was 18 and hot-blooded young man
go.
who'd never been in that position, I don't think, or had hardly ever been in that position. No, probably never been in that position with a lady nurse in a small room. So yeah, it was a case of think of anything but.
Luckily,
Yeah.
but I've always had female doctors, and that's never bothered me, and I
Mm.
occasionally have to have the digital test,
Yeah.
I always, I remember saying once, I mean, I'm not going to enjoy this, but you're not going to enjoy it much either. Because it can't be a lot of fun having to do that, stick your finger up somebody's bum, can it really? But
No. But of course, then again, you could pay extra for that in various places, couldn't
oh,
you?
we
And
could. Yeah. She didn't say leave a contribution in the beside the door as you go out. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't-
No, I think that was a fairly embarrassing one, isn't it? The digital examination. Yeah, I think when someone said I would have to have a digital examination, I did assume there'd be some sort of a scale that would be read off on some computer. Didn't realise it quite meant digital. So,
Now there is a
mm.
knock at the door, and the non-gender specific
Oh,
genie is there,
oh, yes. Now, oh, yeah.
saying saying what are you going to
What? Which of
remove?
those? Which of those unfortunate incidents can I remove? I mean, I think probably um, the finger in the beef burgers is probably one I'd quite like to not have happen. Not just because of the eating of the end of my finger by someone, but actually from the sort of the panic and the worry of how on earth I was going to get to the hospital at the time. Really, so I think if he could slightly defrost the beef burgers so that I don't cut my finger, I'd be quite
Mm.
happy. He, she.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. I mean, I thought you would say the appendicitis, because seeing as that was the most
Well,
painful, and it
I
made you
mean,
miss
yeah,
the
I mean, it's
meals.
a close run thing between the two, really. I suppose because I've now seen the footage on YouTube, it doesn't rankle
Yeah,
quite so much with me. And also the fact that I had this appendix out, which was causing tremendous pain, made life much easier. I have to say. I think,
sure. Well, for me, it's fairly easy. It's putting my back out because that was just so painful, and I could just do without that. So that would be very nice if the genie could make somebody else pick up the waste paper basket, and I would be
I
lovely
mean, just
fine.
just as a
You know.
side note to that, putting your back out, which has only just occurred to me, I did put my own back out doing some decorating once. Standing on a step ladder and reaching just that bit too far to try and get into a corner, and my
Yeah.
back went then, and that made me miss a complete New Year's Eve that we were going to, and it did uh, cause me to have some. They gave me some particular tablets to help it, which were called erythromycin. Don't know if you've ever had those. Now, erythromycin, one of the side effects,
No.
it says sometimes can cause nausea. Now, they didn't just sometimes cause nausea to me, they made me feel as sick as a dog. And it's one of those things whenever anybody says, if you go to the doctors, is there anything any tablets you're allergic to? I say straight away, no erythromycin. I can't go through that again because it was horrendous. Yeah, it was worse than the back pain, to be honest.
Yeah.
The actual sickness, yeah,
All right.
awful.
Okay.
Yeah, so it didn't suit me at all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that wasn't too
No, no,
painful, Dave,
not
was
too
it?
much
Really
discomfort
recounting.
there, but and we've sort of assuaged it a little bit, haven't we, by bringing it out into the open.
Rubbed
Yeah,
around the
yeah.
pain and made it better. So
Onward
onward
and
and
upwards.
upward.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll speak again
Okay, Dave.
soon.
Well, yeah.